right, so Aaron, why don't you go ahead and give your spiritual thought, or does somebody want to give an opening prayer?
I can just knock them both out real quick.
Okay.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for this day. We're grateful for all the blessings that we have. We're grateful for the opportunity to meet together as a class or as a small group and discuss this week's material. Pray that thy spirit may be with each and every one of us, that we may share our thoughts and ideas, and that we may all better learn together. We're grateful for BYU Idaho and the opportunity it presents for all of us to receive an education. And we ask for safety to be upon all of us, and this we say in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
All right, so I was we had a state conference a couple weeks ago, and one of those early morning priesthood leadership, I don't know what they call it, council or meeting or something like that. One gentleman stood up and kind of told the story of a time when he and his wife were sleeping at 2 o'clock in the morning, and a storm was rolling over, and their ceiling started to leak. Water was dripping inside their house, and the husband and wife kind of woke up at the same time, noticed the water on the floor and whatnot, and the wife told the husband, "Hey, why don't you climb up on the roof and fix this water leak real quick?" And he's like, "Oh no, we'll just kind of minimize the damages and put a bucket under there, and we'll address it in the morning." And I don't mean to take anyone here on a guilt trip or anything, but then the wife said, "Well, if Bishop so-and-so called and asked you to go over to Sister so-and-so's house to go fix her roof at 2 o'clock in the morning, would you go and do it?" So, I don't know, the lesson there is, like, we need to use our priesthood in our home for things that, we needed to be doing, be it a leak in the roof or... Oh, yeah. He should be hanging out. Pen. Oh, a pen. Here you go. See ya. Sorry. We should be doing things in the house without trying to impress the bishop or the elder quorum president or high priest group leader or whoever. So I just kind of I like that little story about, serving and being a priesthood holder in your own home first, before trying to look good in front of others.
That was good. I like that.
Yeah.
I think I need to hear that. And I guess another side thing too is you should always listen to your wife. That's what I'm learning. I'm a newlywed, so okay. Are we ready to jump into this?
Sure.
Thanks again, Aaron. All right, so I wish I was a little bit more prepared, but let's get into this. All right, so the first question that we're going to discuss as a group is, what grade would you give Morgan for how he pursued Skyhook? Yeah. I'm guessing we're just like a 1 out of 10 kind of a thing with a grade. Is that?
What do you mean pursued Skyhook?
That's what I'm kind of wondering too. Morgan was the CEO, and how he pursued Skyhook. Okay, AF. All right. Let's see. I'm kind of was thinking. I'm trying to figure that out too. Maybe the way that he yeah, like what Dean said, how he's going about building the business. And I guess we could do it on A to F scale since we're coming up on finals anyways. Anybody have any input?
I would kind of break the grade down, I think, from a bootstrapping there were a lot of stuff in the case that talked about how efficient he was and not wasting money and building it that way. So I would say, from a financial standpoint, from raising money, I would give him an A. The thing that I would give him a lower grade on would be the focus. It's almost like if you have a good idea or a good product, but an undefined market. So I think it's so much harder to start out with what he had, the idea, and then figure out a way to make money with it. And I think that's where I give him like a C or a D.
Like a lack of vision, like where he's going with all of this, or who?
How to make money with it.
Yeah, I guess that's true. He seems like he knows what he's doing. He's got his he's come up with a good idea how to get his product, really well put together. But then when it comes down to selling it and getting, some type of revenue or profit, he's not really. He seems confused. And then Dean says, "I agree. I don't think the people he wants to sell it to understand how they could use it to make money." I think that's true. I think maybe he's not pitching it very well, or maybe a lot of the markets or a lot of the potential buyers are kind of wary right now with what they want to put their money towards, because technology is such a flip-floppy thing. Like, it's either going to be good or it's bad, so it's kind of high risk. But still, I don't know. Do you think he can work on his pitching, or?
It's like because he's got a vision for the idea, good at pitching and getting meetings with the companies and getting investors. He pitches the idea to the investors, and the investors are like, "Oh yeah, this is going to be something big." But when it comes to pitching customers and actually getting customers, he doesn't have a well-defined product. So he has 60 meetings with Nokia, I think is what they said. Yeah. So he needs to, and maybe he needs to bring somebody else in that's more tech savvy in monetizing or making the idea an actual product, because he needs to be able to Kia or Qualcomm, and he needs to show them how they could make money with just a whole, spoon feed them the product and the idea.
Yeah, I don't think it really goes into detail what he's, really saying to these, companies, other than he's trying to sell to them. But maybe he's just having trouble locking them in, and it's starting to. I think that's why he doesn't even believe it that Apple just called him. He thinks it's a joke, because maybe he's just not really looking. I don't know, not realizing the potential of what he's got.
Well, he's already had meetings with Apple.
Yeah, but to have a phone call from Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
That would be pretty cool. Well, even though he's dead. Aaron, do you have anything? Does anybody else see there's two Deans, or is that just me?
I think he tried to jump in to test his audio, but I still can't hear him. Working on it, he says. So I think the case used the phrase, the chicken before the egg, which should come first, and I think Morgan's got a great product, great, as Norm referred to, the great bootstrapping methods. He went to eBay and Craigslist to find the technology or the equipment to ping and pinpoint all the signals, Wi-Fi signals So he's ingenious that way, kept pretty low cost that way. It's just he built up something so great without, I don't know, without somebody to sell it to. And the products that were being produced didn't really have the capability to use his product right off the bat. So he created an interesting and an innovative product, but I think where he failed was there was very small market for it. You know, without really. I guess what I'm trying to say is it was kind of before its time. He needed to be the innovator. He needed to create it, but it was a little bit before its time. The advantage, however, would be that he is the first to market, in a sense, and he's there, ready to capitalize. You know, the second Apple or Nokia or whoever decides to buy his product decides to do that. So, you know, it could have easily gone that nobody bought his product, and this is all for nothing. But I suspect there's great reward when he finally does sell it or whatever he decides to do.
Yeah, even though he hasn't had too much luck locking something in, he's been really persistent, and that shows. Gloria, do you have anything that you want to say before we move on to the next question? No? All right. Now, Skyhook developed a pretty cool technology. It has gotten lots of positive feedback. Put yourself in the shoes of Ted Morgan. Why the lack of sales? So I guess we kind of brushed on this a little bit, but did we come to a conclusion of why there are lack of sales? Would we say that it's because of outer forces, like the market just wasn't really understanding or ready for it, or you guys think it was more of Morgan and his strategy of selling?
Well, I think he was trying to be pretty broad, and had he chosen a specific route right off the bat, like, hey, I'm going to use this for advertising local businesses right off the bat, he probably would have accomplished greater or more immediate success. But he left it really broad, and that might have hurt him. Some of the meetings with Nokia said, the head of, or departments of hardware wasn't sure if it was really a product for them, or the software department didn't really know if it was a product for them, and there was kind of a misunderstanding on who would actually purchase the product at Nokia, and that probably generated the 60 plus meetings and the lack of a deal there. So maybe being too vague hurt him.
Dean says that he would say that it's a combination of both. He doesn't think he was focused, and the company had a hard time selling the value proposition. Thus, the companies they were targeting had a hard time seeing the value it brought to the company. I think that's really true. I don't think that they really understood I think, honestly, they were selling to a bunch of followers, whereas Apple is a leader in the market. Whatever Apple's going to do, everybody else is going to follow. They make the norm when it comes to that market. So, I don't know if it would have stuck. Do you guys think that what do you guys think would have been a factor that would have changed a lot? Do you think more of if, like, let's say Morgan fixed up his way of proposing his plan or the product? Do you think that would have had a bigger effect than if Nokia would have signed on?
See, I think because of his lack of definition, I wrote down he had an undefined product, and when Dean said, yeah, the customer value proposition wasn't really, nobody could see the value because he didn't show them the value of it, show them how they could make money with it, and he was just kind of showing them, well, here's just another feature you could add to your phones. One thing I didn't realize that the first iPhones didn't have GPS in them. And so I can see how Apple would be interested in that. I would think that Nokia or any of the companies back at that stage in mobile devices, they probably couldn't see how it would help them sell more phones or something, but I think it definitely would.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's just one of the when you start off with an idea and you just don't focus it down to a product. I kind of think they should have just kind of had a plan rather than trying to just shotgun approach and all these companies and see if they would get on board with it.
Okay. So yeah, I think we all kind of agree that it was just kind of a general lack of like a target market or some type of plan of where he was going with this. I thought it was a good product.
Yeah, I think you can't blame your customers for not getting your product or your idea.
He was just kind of confused, I guess, or maybe just he didn't have a knack for it. But okay. Now in question 5.
Background.
What's that?
He did have a sales and marketing background. So.
Yeah, he did, which kind of surprised me. Maybe he was just more focused on, figuring out how to pick up all the, get all the Wi-Fi addresses and get that all sorted out. Maybe that was just, he didn't, balance out his priorities very well. But, all right. Now, anything else that we wanted to say about that? Of why the lack of sales? Dean says, it even said on page 9 that they would provide the location software and let each company determine the application of it, be that product, sales, marketing, pricing.
Yeah, you can't just put it out there and say figure out how to use it. You really got to help them see the value and whatever application you're kind of pushing for them.
Yeah, and I think all of us kind of have a hard time thinking about our phones not having that kind of location service or whatever. So it's definitely become a norm when it comes to cellular devices and stuff. So there was a market. All right. Question 5 just says to review the deals below and describe the proposed deal outcome and lessons learned. And I see the different deals, Microsoft and Nokia and E911. What is
that? E911 is the basically location services for voice over internet phones, so that they can dispatch fire, police, or paramedics to your house if you have voice over internet.
Oh, that's okay. Oh yeah.
So it uses the same thing. It's just it uses the VoIP, whatever Wi-Fi or network the VoIP is using. It just uses that location coordinates to dispatch police.
I'm trying to find the exact proposals for each one of these. Let's see. So I think I found it from Microsoft. It says the co-founders proposed a license that allowed Microsoft to use Skyhook system for a single mapping application. Microsoft Streets and Trips. Microsoft will pay an upfront fee of $300,000 and an additional fee for every copy of Streets and Trips that's shipped from Skyhook's technology. If Microsoft's sales projections were accurate, the deal would result in annual revenues of over $1 million over the next few weeks.
Yeah, that was the deal that fell through because everything was going good. They were supposed to get $300,000 up front for the technology and then an additional licensing fee for each version of the streets and maps that it had in it, which would be the $1 million a year revenue. But then he signed the deal, sent it back in, was waiting for his copy, didn't get it back, didn't hear from anybody, called and called, nobody returned their phone calls. Finally, he got a different one back that had it just $100,000 flat amount that Microsoft would pay for the technology and no ongoing licensing fees. So he didn't sign that.
And then with Nokia, I think it was just like 50 cents to $1 per phone that they put it on.
Yeah.
And I guess the outcome was just it never like went anywhere either.
Yeah, because with Nokia they had too many levels for approval because it wasn't really an app or something that you would necessarily put on the phone. It was kind of a background application, like the GPS chip, which was like $3 to $5 per phone. Mm-hmm. So it would be kind of replacing the GPS chip at a much lower price. Instead of $3 to $5 a phone, it'd be like 70 cents a phone. But the people that bought the GPS chips didn't buy software, so it was like, yeah, they just never got the right people, or at least that's what the case said.
Right. And I'm trying to figure out what happened again to the 911 service.
That one. Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Woohoo! All right. Hey, so on the E911, that was voice over IP, and the government never mandated. So they were expecting the government to mandate an E911 service, and the government never did. So all the E911 initiatives got pushed to the back burner with the voice over IP services. So like Vonage, for example, was I think who they were targeting, and everything was going well until they decided that there wasn't going to, or until the government never issued that mandate. And so since they never issued that mandate, they never needed that service, or didn't need it right then. So that project got pushed to the back burner, which meant that Skyhook got pushed to the back burner as well.
What would be the lesson learned from that outcome, you think?
Unless you've got good lobbyists and spend a lot of money, don't rely on government.
I think I agree with that. I think the other lesson to learn there is that don't count your chickens before they're hatched, right? I mean, you got you may have some eggs, so don't put all your eggs in one basket, and then don't count them before they're hatched.
If you do both, yeah, you're done for.
Yeah.
All right. So now this next question just kind of talks about the product itself or the service, and it's basically, it says who benefits from the technology, what problem does it solve, who has this problem, and do the business decision makers in the companies above feel the pain, quote unquote, that is this solution saves.
I think this speaks directly to the problem with the company, is that nobody can really identify who benefits from the technology. Ultimately, it's the end user, right?
Right.
But is that a sharp enough pain point for the company to take action on it? And it doesn't look like it is, because they've had this problem with every company they've come in contact with. I think if the government had mandated the E911 service, then that would have been huge for Skyhook, huge for them. But it never did, right?
Mm-hmm.
If Microsoft had decided that this was a service that would be extremely useful in their Streets and Trips software, that would have been huge for them. But they decided that it wasn't that big, and they didn't want to pay for it to include it in the software, right? Because it benefited the end user, but at what expense to Microsoft? It obviously was more expensive than they were willing, than they saw it adding value to their existing software. And then with Nokia, nobody knew what the heck was going on there, which was their big problem, right?
Yeah.
So I think that these 1, 2, 3, 4 related questions speak to the very issue that Skyhook had. One, that they themselves couldn't really define who benefited from the technology, what problem it solved, who had the problem, and then identifying the business makers in the companies that felt the pain of that problem to get some action taken.
You know, I got to disagree with you a little bit, Dean. I can't think of one.
Excellent.
I can't think of one benefit that really benefits the end user, the consumer. I mean, I get the notifications on my iPhone that says your Wi-Fi is turned off. Turning on Wi-Fi helps something with location services apps. And I'm like, you know, that's just tracking me. Why do how am I benefited by being tracked? So I think the people that really benefit are really advertisers and manufacturers who want to collect data, because then they can make money. Not necessarily the manufacturers of the phones, but you know, people like Facebook. They can sell the ads for a higher price because they can target with local ads that get 2 to 3 times the revenue. So that's why when I picked, you know, which of the 3 options I would pick, I picked the advertising from a business standpoint, because I think that's the easy one to sell. I do think the E911 would benefit the end users eventually, and I think they would be willing to pay for it as part of buying the Vonage service or the device, because I know that, or at least I think, when they sell those devices, they have a huge disclaimer on there saying that if you call 911 using your voice over internet, 911 may not be able to find your house or something like that. So they have to put that big disclaimer on all the products that they sell. So I would think that whether it's mandated by the government or not, I would think it would be a huge advantage, a competitive advantage for Vonage or Uma or, you know, any of these Magic Jack, for any of these services to have that technology built into their devices, so that, you know, if you're using Magic Jack on vacation in your hotel room, and you know, you have an emergency, you have a heart attack or something, you can, you know, call 911 or whatever. So I think that's the only thing I see benefiting the customer, but the customer's not going to buy it and add it to their voice over internet system. It's got to come with that system, but I think it would be a benefit to that manufacturer to sell it with that feature built in. So that's kind of who I think benefits.
And I agree with you, Norman. That I picked the advertising business model as well. I think that's the direction the company should go. I mean, so we're looking at this kind of in hindsight, right? This case took place almost 10 years ago. and we've seen the advancements in technology and everything since then. At the time, I think voice over IP could have used the location services as a competitive advantage. Today, there's absolutely no way for the voice over. In fact, voice over IP is struggling to maintain a viable business model today for anything other than business applications, right? Because from a residential standpoint, most residential phones even are going the way of the dinosaur. Everybody's using their cell phones instead of a residential number. And their cell phones have 911, services, kind of built in, free of charge kind of deal. So as we look around today, absolutely, advertising is where this product would have, and even still today would have, the greatest application and the greatest potential for growth.
I think that at the time, I don't really see that there really was a benefit for the consumer, the individual. But as we look at it now, we can see that was a stepping stone to what we have now. So, and I really do depend on my location services, not necessarily the Wi-Fi, but just my location services, especially without like my GPS on my phone. So I think it was a a step in the right direction. But I think then it was more of a manufacturer kind of, I don't know, to help the manufacturer a little bit, to just tack on an extra little, I don't know, service that they could provide with their phone to make it a little bit newer and different than the others. I think that Morgan, if he would have asked themselves these questions about, what problem does it solve, where is the pain that I'm solving, I think it might have helped him overcome the I don't know, the confusion he might have been going through, or the lack of vision that he had. But all right, any other comments on that subject?
I was just going to say real quick about the GPS that was in early version of the phones and things like that was one of the problems they faced was I think it said a few meters or a few yards of accuracy.
Yeah.
With triangulation of Wi-Fi or routers or whatever, that accuracy could be increased a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that could have been a problem that existed that Skyhook solves.
True.
And then on a side note, I like my I've got a Gas Buddy app. Uses my location to the nearest gas station or the gas station with the cheapest price. I use that all the time.
Yeah, I always use the Waze app as my GPS.
Nice.
You can do Little John voice or T-Pain.
I'll have to check that out.
All right. Now we're gonna vote, guys. All right. So put 1 if you think the strategy option would be best through local ads. 2 if you think selling the company is the best idea, or 3 preserving and continuing is the best idea. 1, 2, and 3. All right. Sell to Apple. Okay. Let's see. So I was also kind of thinking too, like selling to Apple would be cool, but I think can they just do that right now? I don't know. What do you think Morgan wants? Just, I mean, if Morgan had to choose, what do you think he would do? Anybody? Probably.
I honestly think he's kind of stuck on this big idea. And if you go back to the very beginning of the case, he was always like a little teeny tiny percentage player in the startups that he was with, and he always wanted to, hit the big money. And the only way he could do that is by, being one of the founders. So I think that was kind of a clue as to what he wanted, and I think he wanted the big payday. So I would say selling it to a big tech firm.
So I can totally understand option 2, sell the company and to preserve, but I don't see how local ads are an attractive idea. Can somebody elaborate?
Before we move on to that, did I miss something? I mean, I read through the entire case, and I didn't see anywhere in there that Apple actually made an offer to buy the company.
No, they were getting ready to talk to or call back Steve Jobs.
Jobs, right?
They had a meeting with Steve Jobs for the next week, a week from when they called him back.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. Okay. So we don't even know if selling to Apple.
Well, the option is sell the company, not sell to Apple, but hopefully to Apple.
Yeah, I just inferred it would be to Apple based on the amount of time the case spent on Steve Jobs, his personality, and the prank and all that stuff. So
got it.
I wish I had some numbers to be like, yeah, sell to Apple, this is going to be great, and had a bunch of numbers, but it's just more of a I don't know, feeling I get from the case. Why would it mention Apple and Steve Jobs so much if they didn't play a huge part in this company?
We've read so many case studies that we're starting to see where things are going.
So in answer to your question, maybe Norman can elaborate on this a little bit, at least from my perspective, as far as the local ads. I mean, advertising is huge business, right? And if you go to an ad company and say, hey, for X amount of dollars, I can get your ad triangulated to, to everybody within a 100-foot radius of a Wi-Fi hotspot, and all the businesses around there, or you go to a company, maybe not an ad company, but a restaurant, for example, and say, hey, I can give you targeted ads to everybody who's within 100 feet of your restaurant, for X amount of dollars, whatever. And then if they did that, if they scaled that nationwide, right? So Red Robin is a restaurant chain here in Utah, and I know they have stores across at least the western U.S., and I think they have stores across most of the U.S. If I went to Red Robin and said, hey, I will give you targeted ads for everybody within 100 yards of a Red Robin. Anytime they pass by Red Robin, they get a text saying, hey, come stop by Red Robin, because it's a targeted ad. Or anytime they use a particular app. Nowadays, I mean, back then, I don't know how they would have delivered those ads. I assume they would have gotten a text or some kind of something. Nowadays, it would be an ad inside of an application, likely, right? I mean, that's how apps make their money, right? Is by targeting advertising. The same thing applies here, right? So if they're using their GPS, then the GPS pops up an ad, and for every one of those ads, I mean, if you multiply that by the hundreds of millions of users across the U.S. that drive within 100 feet of a Red Robin, that could be a huge revenue source.
Yeah, and it would be, I think, pretty easy to do through an ad agency that sells the ads to the app, that places the ads on the apps.
That makes more sense. I guess I just didn't really get how that was going to work, but I get it now. On my GPS, every time I pass by like an Arby's or something, I always get an ad. Or when I come to a stoplight, I'll get like an ad too of like a local place. So I can see how that works. That's cool. Now, with the phone call coming from Steve Jobs, we have to prepare an agenda of a couple different categories or different specific topics. So, what is our BATNA? BATNA. I believe that's our. I can't remember exactly what that stands for, but it's like
best alternative.
Yeah, like your backup plan, like what you got hiding in your back pocket. Like, I don't know if he has anything, but what is your BATNA?
I would say at least part of it would include, hopefully, Apple Pay You. I don't know. I was kind of thrown off guard if, Apple wanted money from Morgan, and I think we'll cover that a little bit later. I didn't even think that was a possibility, but maybe to enter that market it would be. But I think best case scenario, they get together and Steve Jobs Apple takes the data and offers a price for for the product, for the data they've collected, data points they've collected, and perhaps keep the routes updated every month or every year or something like that, so it stays current. So some kind of a service plan along with it. That would be kind of my best case scenario.
See, they add technology in the phones that would automatically register all the Wi-Fi hotspots or Wi-Fi locations that phone encounters, and then upload it to their database. So the more manufacturers that have the technology in the phone, the easier it is to keep that network active.
So it would eliminate the need to have Craigslist hired drivers and things like that, and vans and stuff like that. Okay, great.
I kind of feel like if, let's say this, the thing between him and Apple doesn't really go anywhere, just the fact that Apple was interested is going to help perk the interest of a lot of other companies. So if we were to somehow publicize that, I know this is kind of weird. It's not like a specific plan, but even just to somehow let other companies know that like Apple's really interested in this could really help them out, especially like with other cell phone companies. I don't know. I feel like
the downside to that strategy or that idea is that if Apple turns them down, then that also increases the likelihood that other companies will turn them down, right?
It kind of puts a curse on them, but it kind of also shows where Apple is looking or like what they want to do next. And I feel like every other cell phone company is trying to figure that out. Not currently, I don't think, but well, maybe.
At least back in the day, right?
Oh, yeah, yep. So now, what are Steve Jobs' interests right now?
Right now, none.
Okay, what were they like 10 years ago?
So I think, I don't know. I'm going to step back to the BATNA for just a second, because what that means is that we have to come up with our next best alternative, right? So it's the best alternative to a negotiated agreement is what it stands for. And it's at what point we determine we're going to walk away from the negotiation with Apple. So if we go to Apple, so first we need to decide what we want from Apple. and then if we don't get it, what's the next best alternative? So I would think that we would want them to either purchase us, right, or to have our product go into every one of their phones at a certain price point, right? So they buy our technology, it goes into the phone and gets distributed everywhere. So then we can then take that same technology, you know, maybe we give them an exclusivity agreement for like 2 years, and then we go then to Google, who makes Android, 2 years from now, and we allow them to put it in all of their phones as well. So now all of the iPhones have it, and all of the Android phones have it, and everybody's got it, and we're making money hand over fist. And in addition to that, we can then start, because we've compiled so much data, we can then start to monetize that through local advertisements as well, right?
Right.
The alternative to that, if Apple's not willing to do that, then I think we just walk and start doing the local advertisement right now.
Okay. Anybody have any objections or anything they want to add to that? I think that sounds good.
BATNA stands for Best Alternative to a Negotiated Agreement.
Check.
So would you guys say that Steve Jobs' interests lie in like improving his good or his product that he has, looking for something that, I don't know,
I think he's
innovative step?
since he doesn't have GPS in the iPhone, I think he was looking ahead to what am I going to put in the next iPhone, either GPS or this type of location technology.
I think that pretty much sums it up. Why did he call you? Is the next question. I think that he's just generally interested. Just the fact that he personally is calling Morgan kind of makes me feel like he's a little excited about it. He's really interested.
One thing we haven't really talked about yet is the patent protection that Morgan sought after, and I think he was awarded. So perhaps this proprietary technology, you know, has a huge value if nobody can duplicate it.
That's a good point.
You know, he's sitting on a gold mine, so to speak.
So maybe Steve Jobs is calling him because he's mad.
But you know,
try to buy him out.
Kudos to Morgan for you know, getting a patent on it.
Yeah, I think something I read said they have over 60 patents.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Aaron. I think the patent protection there offers a huge value add. So the question in the case prep, right, where they give you the background information, you know, says, what should Ted propose to Steve Jobs? Specifically, should Skyhook be paid by Apple or offer to pay Apple for access to its customer base? Under what conditions should Ted be willing to walk away from the Apple opportunity? Assume that in 2008, Apple will sell 5 million laptops, 60 million iPods, and 10 million iPhones, all of which will be Wi-Fi enabled. So if they used the Skyhook technology for their you know, location service or whatever, instead of a GPS chip, that could be, I mean, that could be huge. So I'm just doing some quick 75, that's 75 million devices. Even if they charged, like 3 cents a device, I think was one of the price points that I read in the case study somewhere. That'll be $2.2 million in revenue generated to Skyhook. and that's probably cheaper than what they could get for a GPS chip, right? Did I read that somewhere in the case? It seems like I did.
I thought it was around 50 cents for it or so. 50 cents per device.
For the GPS
I
chip?
think that was for the Nokia deal.
Oh, okay. So I would pursue, you know, instead of 3 cents per device, I would at least pursue 30 cents or 50 cents. But so that could range, Dean, anywhere from 2.2 million like you had to you know, half of 75 million, 35 million, so 38
Yeah,
million.
could be huge for
So
them.
it could, and that's annual. That's just for the year 2008.
And because of the patent protection, right? Well, so Apple had a lot more resources than Skyhook did, and if they wanted to steal their technology, they probably could, and Skyhook wouldn't be able to do much about it. But they, you know, because of the patent protection, that could create an even larger competitive advantage for Apple to have this technology in their product.
Yeah, Nokia purchased Navtech for $8 billion, which provided location data for GPS-based mapping applications.
Wow.
So, yeah, Skyhook had asked 30 cents to $1 per device, depending on volumes and upfront commitments. So, yeah, I think the 3 cents per device is a little low, Dean. Not to, you know, point out any of your flaws or anything.
I couldn't remember what I remember seeing a 3 with a decimal in front of it, but I couldn't remember where it was placed.
Right on.
So that kind of goes into the last question, which is just basically, you know, how big of an opportunity is this for Skyhook right now? What was that number? You said 8 billion for what just now, Aaron? Or who said that?
It was Navtech. It was Nokia buying the Navtech company.
Right. That's kind of a good example, I think, of what might, you know, be in store for Skyhook right now, especially with the patent. There's no way to copy it. Steve Jobs is super interested, obviously. He's loaded.
So, besides the potential application for GPS in their devices, what other interest do you think Jobs has in Skyhook? Any other ideas? I'm just asking for my own curiosity. I'm trying to rack my brain thinking of what else he'd be interested in.
I don't think so. I think maybe this is, you know, I don't know. Maybe a lot could come from this. Like it's just the start, and Steve Jobs just kind of is interested to see, you know, once he gets his hands on it, what he could potentially make it turn into, or I don't know. I don't really see Skyhook. I feel like this is it. This is their thing. Do you think they have really anything else to offer?
I don't know. I mean, I think Jobs could take the Skyhook technology and probably leverage the potential of it greater than they can. But I don't.
That with his team and everything.
Yeah. Just knowing a little bit about, I mean, I don't know the guy by any stretch of the imagination, but having listened to a number of his talks and reading his biography, I'm really just curious to kind of wrap my head around what he saw there, because his goal, right, is perfection of his products. That's and then the usability of those products and the impact. I mean, it's stated over and over in several things that I've read about him and by him that his goal was to make a dent in the universe, right? He wanted products that were not only pristine in their appearance but in their functionality and were novel and useful. So I'm just trying to figure out what else Apple would see. It seems like there's got to be more to what he sees as a potential application here besides just a location service. But maybe that's beyond the scope of this call. It's okay.
I just kind of feel like that's it. Like that's I don't know. That's just something that he can grasp onto to put into his phones.
I need to say something.
Yeah.
Okay, I see the exhibit number 6 and said that all the potential for this device, and now I knew that this this happened 10 years ago, and now we have all this potential in whatever we use, and if Steve Jobs see this potential, I really I think he's really interested in this product.
That's a really good point. Because yeah, all those things that you see in those exhibits, that's stuff we've got today. And Steve Jobs is known for being able to kind of think outside the box in a really kind of productive way, and just take I don't know. I kind of feel like he sees this as like just like a starter idea. Like he just wants to get his hands on it and see what it can do and just stretch it out, you know. But I'm not exactly sure. But yeah. If that's it, that's the end of the discussion. If anybody has anything else to add.